l'idolâtrie aurait pu être annulée. Assalamu alaikum. Yes. Yes. Huzur, we were just completing the reply of Huzur's from the last program. Yes, I have just about a minute more to go. Thank you. Jazakumullah. Donc, j'étais en train de dire que le calife, en répondant à cette question, avait dit que les mariages célébrés dans l'idolâtrie auraient pu être annulés dès l'arrivée de ces personnes dans l'islam. Mais ce que l'on voit, c'est que pas un seul de ces mariages ne fut rejeté par le saint prophète Mohammed al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Car le mariage est une chose universellement reconnue. La seule chose que l'islam proscrit, c'est de faire les choses en cachette et de chercher à échapper aux responsabilités encourues par cette union. Par exemple, la responsabilité du père envers l'enfant, envers la mère de l'enfant, etc., etc. C'est pourquoi qu'il est difficile de se prononcer sur la question africaine. Le calife avait dit que je pense que de tels mariages sont acceptables si les partenaires s'accrochent et adhèrent aux valeurs du mariage. Dans de tels cas, l'islam ne sera pas né en dehors du mariage et alors la question ne se posera plus.
Right? Jazakumullah. You all agree with this translation?
Yes.
That's good. Please, next question.
Prochaine question.
Naveed Marty has jolted you into coming here. You couldn't tolerate any French program without you, huh?
Well, I always wanted him to be in the program, actually. Yes.
So that you could also.
Well, it's nice to be with him.
Good.
Oui, allez-y.
Dieu a-t-il révélé la langue à un seul homme, comme le Coran, ou à plusieurs hommes en même temps?
Did God reveal language to man as he revealed Quran, the Holy Quran, to just one man, or did he reveal it to several men so that they could all talk to each other?
He could not. I think he could, but he may not have taught the language together to so many people. He must have taught, I believe, to a chosen servant of his, the language which was taught to him at an age where he was to be married and grow children, and he could teach that language to his children, and he must have been a leader of a tribe to whom he could teach further this language. So the language was not directly revealed to everybody, because we know this is not the custom of Allah, to commune with everyone directly. One trusted servant is chosen by him, like in the case of all prophethood, wherever it appears. One man is chosen. Although the phenomenon of revelation is also experienced by others to give support to that one man. So that might have happened. But the language, I believe, according to the process of prophecy, as we see manifest itself in the history of religion, language must have been taught to one man. And from him it may have spread to his children, as I have just told you, and also to the tribe, of which he must have been a leader, a sort of leader. He must have been respected by them so that he could teach them this language. Because language to be taught separately and for them to get together to speak that language, that is inconceivable. Right?
Sa sainteté dit que Dieu pouvait bien sûr enseigner la langue à un grand nombre d'êtres humains, mais il a dû plutôt l'enseigner à un seul homme. C'était un serviteur choisi, un serviteur en qui il avait confiance, et qui, se mariant, aurait pu à son tour enseigner la langue à ses enfants. Et il a dû être aussi un chef de tribu, car dans ce cas, étant respecté, les gens de sa tribu pourraient apprendre la langue de lui aussi. Donc, il s'agissait certainement d'un serviteur en qui Allah a pu placer sa confiance et la révélation n'a eu lieu qu'avec cette seule personne. Mais il est possible, dit le calife, qu'une partie de cette révélation ait été donnée à d'autres seulement pour soutenir cet homme central qui a reçu donc cette révélation et seulement pour le soutenir dans cette tâche. Mais selon l'étude de la religion, il semblerait plutôt que la langue ait été révélée à un seul homme, qu'il l'ait enseignée à ses enfants et étant chef respecté de sa tribu, l'ait enseigné aussi aux membres de la tribu. Et il est inconcevable de penser que le langage ait été révélé à plusieurs hommes en même temps pour qu'ils viennent ensuite se parler avec la langue qui leur a été révélée.
This is a very interesting question, and I think I should give more answer to the question than actually you wanted to know, because this question is related to a sign of the existence of God. There are two theories that man was created blindly by such forces of nature who had no mind. Yet through selective processes, animals were advanced in species and gradually all their organs came into being and so on and so forth. Now, on that I have already written included a chapter in my book specifically to rebut these things. But here I would like to say something more which you should understand and all who listen to us should understand. The gap between the animal kingdom and man, as far as the language goes, is so big that no graduation of learning of language can be shown by the scientists. The gap is so big that it defies the theory of evolution in that respect. Because if man had evolved to learn a language, any language, then we must have been able to see a long trail behind humans of animals gradually learning their languages and developing them until man was able to take it forward. Like in every knowledge, every branch of knowledge, he has advanced more rapidly than other animals. So it is possible, I mean, theoretically, hypothetically, it is possible that if man had evolved, the language should also have evolved along with the animals. But there is no sign of any evolution in learning of languages in the animal kingdom. Such far and wide, those animals who have learned to express themselves in some manner, they learnt it right from the most ancient samples of those animals. Right from the most ancient times, because when we examine the ancient specimens of those animals, they have exactly the same means of expressing themselves. And this is a universal habit. Lions from Africa, lions from Sundarban of Bangladesh, they speak exactly the same language. Crows of Pakistan, I'm not talking of mullahs, the crows of Pakistan speak exactly the same language as the crows of England do. Go to any island, any country, any continent, go to north and south, wherever an animal is found, he would stick to the same habits of expressing himself. Where do you find any sign of evolution of language in these things? The honeybee, right from the most ancient times, because it is recorded that honeybee is able to express herself far more clearly than any other animal in the world. But our expressions are fixed. There is no evolution in those expressions. Honeybee of 100,000 years ago used to use exactly the same expressions as the honeybee of today. The things which honeybee has learned must have learned from God, who etched these exceptional qualities into her so that she could express herself like no other animal in the world could. And it is just an insect and no evolution. The honeybee, when they are divided into different groups, categories, worker honeybees and this honeybee and that honeybee, soldier honeybees, the queen and those who help her. They are all differently, they are made in the same way, but they are differently characterized. The character and the style of life given to them is different from each other. They perform different functions. And in the performance of those functions, you see some fantastic things which cannot be found in any other animal of the whole world, in the whole world. For instance, when a honeycomb, the colony of honeybees is about to swarm, when they have to leave the previous place where they had built their honeycomb and they want to go to some other place, it doesn't happen like just haphazardly. Every honeybee is flying around here and there and seeing which place would be, and then how would they discuss that? How would they know her version is better than the others, and so on and so forth? They keep sitting at the same place along with the honeybee. Not one moves except those worker honeybees whose specific task it is to find out a good site. They spread out and watch for each site. Now when they return, there may be hundreds or thousands of these workers who have spread out and seen different sites. How would they convey what they saw to the queen? That is the question. And how would queen sift the relevant material? Unless she knows exactly what each returning honeybee has told her, and she has got that in her mind, and then another one and another one, and until she receives all the reports and compares them, she doesn't decide to which side she should fly. Once decided, she makes a beeline for that side and goes straight to that, and all the colony flies along with her and go and start building the honeycomb in the next site. All this is amazing, but far more amazing is the way the scientists have learned the methodology in all this. Full marks to these scientists and no marks to these atheists who know these things and yet they are atheists. They have no right to be atheists. In this case, I'll tell you briefly what happens. Each honeybee, when it returns to the comb, dances in a very special way. Directing herself exactly in line with the thing, the area which she has scanned, and the tree she has discovered to be a good site for the next honeycomb. She keeps facing that, and then she dances. and then she turns sometimes and does this and that. And during that dance, she tells the queen that the site I have seen is exactly half a kilometer from here, and the flowers around are plentiful, and the site is well protected from outside invaders. And if we occupy that site, perhaps that would be ideal for the next honeycomb to build. Then another one comes. She also makes the same dance, similar dance, and she tells a different direction. And the honeybee preserves all that information in her mind. And she says, no, not in that direction, but say half a kilometer from that, on the left side or on the east side, there is a rock in which there is a hollow. And in that hollow, if we build a honeycomb, that would be ideal, because close to that rock there are also flowers of this sort or that sort. And then she also informs the honeybee that as far as our predators are concerned, there are very few in that area. And the honeybee says, yes, okay. Thousands of workers, having scanned all the area around, return with their own specific messages, and they understood. Who taught this dance? And still, the scientists who have learnt this art, they cannot understand exactly what the dance conveys. But they suspect that because all the information is conveyed, and the dance is a very specific dance in, technically it's a highly involvement set of movements. She turns slightly left, slightly right, she flutters her wings in a special way, and then sometimes she turns back and does fantastic things. And the honeybee understands, and at last she has made up her mind. Then I said she goes, in a beeline, straight heading for that site. And all the colonies swarms and goes along with her, and they start working immediately, building the honeycomb, taking all the protective measures and so on. Now, show me one animal in the entire world which has a built-in system of a language which she herself has not made. The whole package is created and somehow entered into the system of expression of that honeybee. Honeybee is the only insect about which the Holy Quran says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. O Prophet, your Lord revealed to the honeybee to search for high trees or mountain rocks or the twining, not the bushes, but all the vegetative growth, which like gourd and other things, twine around things, along trees or posts. So they go on building, they're growing their stem in a round way, either moving from right to left or left to right. And they twine along some long post, tall post, or tall tree. the Holy Quran says, and we also taught honeybee to search for them and always build her home at a lofty place, never on the ground. Does any honeybee act contrary to this? Right from the ancient times, they always build their houses high above. There's so much more to be said, but I'll briefly remind you that honeybee is less like an ordinary fly. The same insect, the same sort of wings, and that fly falls on filth, builds her home on refuse, and she is the carrier of disease. And this fly builds her house far away from land, where insects and other filthy things cannot in any way interfere with her way of life. And she is a means of cure, according to the Quran. One is a means of spreading disease, the other is a means of cure. And the one who is the means of cure is mentioned in the Quran as we revealed to her to do this, to do that, to do that, to do that, not to do this. Now the scientists, unfortunately not the Muslim scientists, but the Christian scientists, atheist scientists, have worked so hard on supporting the Quranic version without realizing what they're doing. Maybe they might have hesitated if they knew what they were working for. They're diligently serving the cause of the Quran and this little verse which speaks of the honeybee. So we were talking of languages. Honeybee is capable of expressing everything she has observed in a manner, as I told you, no other animal can. So this is how God teaches languages. Every animal has her own language, but no animal evolves in those languages which are taught to him. That is the point. So where is the sign of evolution in language? In the entire 1 billion years of animal evolution, there is not a single sign of evolution in languages. The languages are taught and the animals stick to them. That is all they have got. And the languages may be highly complicated, like the language of the honeybee. But still it is a package deal for them. They have not evolved since 1 million years. They do exactly the same thing. So when Allah says, we taught man the language, the evidence is there. No sign of any evolution in language. God must have taught. And when He taught, then the languages began to differ and grow, and they differed from each other and gave birth to other languages, which is also claimed in the Holy Quran. The language was taught because otherwise man could not have communed with Allah, and man could not have taken the final step into a world of meanings which the animal kingdom does not even dream of. They see what they see, and in their own environment they live and spend all their lifetime. But none is capable of realizing what's happening 10 billion apart, 10 billion light years apart, or how the sun is made, how the moon is created, other parts of the earth, the geography of earth, and all the different animals and things, they have no idea, absolutely. Only they see what they confront, and that's all. So it is the language which started all this. And also some other things which the Holy Quran mentions, of course. So the difference between man and the animal kingdom is so wide, unbelievably wide, that it could not have been created by the evolution which is non-existent before it. So it had to be created by Allah. How He did it, we don't know. He does. Right?
Sa Sainteté le Calife, pour répondre à cette question très intéressante, nous dit...
Now he will remember everything, mashallah.
I'll try, Inch'Allah. Le calife dit que c'est une question très intéressante et le calife dit que j'aimerais en dire beaucoup plus, en dire davantage. En tout cas, le langage et son enseignement est un signe de l'existence de Dieu. On pense que l'homme a été créé de façon aveugle et que les animaux ont évolué jusqu'à l'homme selon donc, le plus grand hasard. Mais le calife dit que vous allez pouvoir en apprendre davantage dans mon livre qui va paraître très bientôt à ce sujet. Mais je veux dire, dit le calife, que le fossé qui sépare l'animal de l'homme, de par la langue humaine que les animaux ne possèdent pas, est si grand que ce fossé met au défi cette théorie d'évolution aveugle. Mais si cette théorie était vraie, alors on devrait voir une chaîne d'animaux à l'ordre inférieur précédant l'homme dans l'évolution, qui sont à des différentes étapes d'apprentissage de la langue. Or, ce n'est pas ce que l'on voit. Si l'évolution aveugle était vraie, on devrait voir la langue chez certains animaux aujourd'hui. Mais lorsqu'on étudie des exemples d'animaux anciens, par exemple, on voit qu'ils avaient les mêmes moyens de communication que ceux qui ressemblent à eux de nos jours. Par exemple, nous voyons que les lions d'Asie et les lions d'Afrique ont pratiquement les mêmes moyens, les modes de communication. De même, les corbeaux du Pakistan et les corbeaux d'ici, et le calife dit ici que par corbeau du Pakistan, je ne veux nullement dire les mollahs du Pakistan, il ne faut pas s'y tromper. Il n'y a pas de différence dans la langue. Ces corbeaux ici et là-bas parlent exactement la même langue. Depuis des temps éloignés, l'abeille, qui s'exprime bien plus clairement que tous les autres animaux, utilise le même moyen que les abeilles d'aujourd'hui. Donc il n'y a pas eu d'évolution dans sa langue du tout. Le calife explique que l'abeille a dû apprendre ces choses de Dieu, car ce n'est qu'un insecte, et l'évolution ne peut pas amener l'abeille à s'exprimer, ce n'est pas possible. Tous les types d'abeilles, la reine, les abeilles ouvrières et tous les autres types que l'on retrouve dans la ruche sont différentes les unes des autres, mais elles arrivent quand même à se communiquer des messages et à se comprendre. Lorsque, par exemple, les abeilles doivent, pour une raison ou une autre, quitter la ruche, eh bien, elles ne sortent pas de façon inorganisée, elles restent toutes dans la ruche sur place. Et ce sont une opération de reconnaissance est donc lancée, et certaines abeilles vont sortir pour aller trouver donc de l'information sur différentes places possibles où ils pourraient se réfugier. Eh bien, lorsque ces abeilles rentrent, les messages sont donnés à la reine. Et la reine arrive à comparer ces rapports et décide alors d'aller vers un site particulier. Toutes les abeilles vont alors la suivre jusqu'à ce site. Mais tout cela est bien merveilleux, dit le calife, et les scientifiques qui l'ont découvert, en tout cas il faut dire 10 sur 10 pour eux, mais 0 point pour les athées. Car ils n'ont pas le droit, en voyant ces choses merveilleuses, de dire qu'il n'y a pas Dieu à l'œuvre dans tout cela. Ils n'ont pas le droit de dire cela. Eh bien, l'abeille, pour communiquer justement ce message, elle va accomplir une danse et elle va dire à toutes les abeilles et surtout à la reine que le site, par exemple, qu'elle a trouvé se situe à peu près un demi-kilomètre de la ruche et qu'il y a des fleurs qu'elle pourrait utiliser donc, pour faire leur miel aux alentours et les fleurs sont en quantité suffisante et que, par exemple, il y a peu de danger d'attaque venant de la part de prédateurs. Eh bien,
It also tells in which direction is the mouth of that site, that cave or that opening in the
hollow.
Hollow in the tree. That which way it is directed and how deep it is.
Le calife dit ce qui est merveilleux, c'est que l'abeille non seulement dit où ce site se trouve, mais dit aussi quel genre de creux ou de trou elle a trouvé et dans quelle direction ce trou fait face et quelle est sa profondeur, quel est le volume qu'il occupe. Donc c'est vraiment merveilleux qu'une petite abeille puisse dire toutes ces choses à la reine. Donc voilà alors qu'une autre abeille qui a fait sa reconnaissance retourne à la ruche. Et elle dit que oui, mais moi j'ai trouvé un autre site qui se trouve dans une autre direction. C'est dans une grosse pierre, c'est un gros creux, un gros trou au milieu de cette pierre. Et tout autour, il y a assez de fleurs et il y a très peu de prédateurs. Donc la reine enregistre tous ces messages. Elle va peut-être en recevoir des milliers. Et après avoir analysé tous ces messages, elle va donc décider d'un site. Qui donc lui a enseigné cette danse? Les scientifiques ne peuvent pas encore comprendre tous les éléments de cette danse, mais ils comprennent que le message doit être complet et bien détaillé, puisque la reine sait exactement où elle va, suivie de toutes ses ouvrières. Donc la reine comprend enfin, décide de quitter la ruche et elle s'en va. Et toutes les abeilles se suivent et, arrivées à ce site, se mettent à l'œuvre immédiatement à reconstruire la nouvelle ruche. Le calife dit « Montrez-moi un autre animal qui ait ce système d'expression ». Alors le calife dit que le seul animal qui ait été mentionné dans le Saint-Coran dans ce cadre a justement été l'abeille. Lorsque Allah dit, le verset que le calife avait cité, c'était « Wa awha rabbuka ila an-nahli an ittakhidhi buyutan min ash-shajari » Donc le calife a cité le verset qu'il fallait. Et donc c'est que Dieu lui-même a révélé à l'abeille où elle doit faire sa demeure dans les montagnes ou dans les arbres ou dans ce que fabriquent les hommes, donc les ruches telles qu'on les connaît. Et qu'elle construise donc sa ruche sur une hauteur, une certaine hauteur. Le calife dit qu'on pourrait en dire bien plus. En fait, l'abeille, dit-il, ressemble fort à la mouche, la simple mouche qu'on connaît. Et cette mouche vit, elle, sur la saleté. C'est là qu'elle se nourrit, c'est là qu'elle vit. Et elle porte la maladie avec elle. Mais l'abeille, elle, construit sa demeure sur une hauteur, loin de toute saleté. Et elle offre un remède pour les hommes. Et Allah dit que c'est lui qui a révélé toutes ces choses à l'abeille. Les scientifiques athées ont travaillé très dur, en fait, pour soutenir la thèse islamique, la thèse du Coran. Et s'ils le réalisaient, ils seraient bien déçus, c'est sûr. L'abeille peut exprimer tout ce qu'elle voit, comme ne peut le faire aucune autre bête. Chaque animal a son mode d'expression, mais on ne voit pas d'évolution dans cette expression, on ne voit pas d'évolution dans cette langue. En 1 milliard d'années d'évolution, on ne voit pas pas un seul signe de l'évolution dans les langues des bêtes. Les langues sont enseignées, et alors tout ce qui est enseigné, on doit s'y accrocher. La langue ne peut pas s'évoluer davantage. Lorsqu'Allah dit qu'il a aussi enseigné aux hommes le langage, eh bien, cela, par la suite, commence à donner naissance à d'autres langues, et le Coran en a parlé. La langue a été enseignée, en fait, pour que l'homme puisse communiquer avec Allah. Et l'homme n'aurait pas pu, sans la langue, concevoir tout cet autre univers qui lui est donc désormais ouvert grâce à la langue. Aucun animal ne peut concevoir cet univers-là. Chez les animaux, on ne voit pas la notion de l'espace, de la création des astres, de la géographie, etc. Les animaux n'en connaissent strictement rien. Ce qu'ils savent, c'est tout ce qu'ils savent, c'est ce qu'ils voient. Et ils ne comprennent pas plus. La langue, donc, a ouvert cette perspective. Donc, en fait, le fossé entre le royaume animal et l'homme est très grand. Et tout cela a été créé par Allah, par le simple acte d'avoir enseigné la langue à l'homme.
Now, I want to, before I permit you to ask another question, I have to say something. I mentioned during my response that I don't mean the mullahs of Pakistan when I speak of crows. Why did you say that? What right have I got to call them mullah crows? Tell me.
It must be some trait in the crows which is similar to what we see in mullahs, perhaps. Their feeding habits, maybe?
Not exactly. Exactly, they are the opposite. You see, the crows are notorious for their revenge against somebody, something. They gather around it and go on striking all of them who are not even concerned. They cry loud and wide and tell the whole crows in that vicinity to come and strike at something they want to hit. And they have a common character in this. Everywhere in the world the crows behave like this. So that is the similarity. And another similarity is mentioned in a saying of Arabs. We say, إذا كان الغراب هذا قوم سيهديهم طريق الهالكين. هذا قوم है या هذا قوم है? हादिया हादी
हादी
हाँ
जी हादा कौन नहीं होना चाहिए
मुझे हादा याद था.
I think it's
So
right.
that could be perhaps a verb.
Yes,
But हादिया قوم भी हो सकता है.
yes,
إذا كان الغراب هادية قوم,
yes.
so ye is dropped and then
Yes.
it would be hade. So I'm not very good at Arabic grammar, but maybe it's this or that. The meaning is very clear. That when the crow leads the people, it always leads them to destruction. Invariably to destruction. So this is the very strong feature we find among the ulama today. Whenever they lead to destruction. So I didn't just say what I said as by way of mockery. Far be it from me. I always say things which are real and for which I have some support, factual support. Now that much far the similarity. Tell me, what is the difference between the crows and the mullahs? Can you? Can you? You understood me, of course, huh? Yes. Anyone?
The difference.
Jahangir is very clever. He would tell perhaps one difference.
Well, the crows can fly, I suppose. The mullahs can't fly.
Mentally, they fly very high. Very ambitious people. They want to capture the very heights of power, from where they can command. Fly quite high. You see, when it comes to bread, when the crows see a small piece of bread anywhere, they will again cry out, loud and wide. Their voices will be heard. The crowing will, whatever you call the voice of a crow,
The caw.
caws. Their caws will be heard far and wide. And they have seen only one bit of edible something. They all gather and try to snatch away from each other. But the crow will give a call. But when the mullah sees something edible, they do it like this. Picks it and hides it somewhere here. He never lets other mullahs know that this is something good. So there, they differ as well. Okay? Please.
Le calife dit que je voulais faire une petite précision. Lorsque tout à l'heure j'avais parlé de la similarité entre les corbeaux et les mollahs, ce n'était pas seulement pour me moquer d'eux. Et il a demandé alors quelle est la ressemblance entre les corbeaux et les mollahs. Donc on n'a pas compris exactement, mais le calife nous explique qu'en fait les corbeaux sont très connus pour leur revanche. S'ils en veulent à quelque chose, à un animal quelconque, ils vont appeler tous les corbeaux à leur secours Et ils vont s'attaquer à cet animal, même si les autres corbeaux ne lui reprochent rien. Ils vont l'aider dans cette attaque. Aussi, il y a le dire des Arabes que si un corbeau devient le chef d'un peuple, il va certainement les amener à leur destruction. Donc voilà un trait que l'on retrouve chez les mollahs. Le calife dit que lorsque je parle toujours avec des faits qui soutiennent ce que je dis. Je ne dis pas seulement par pure moquerie. Alors le calife dit, mais quelle est la différence alors entre les mollahs et les corbeaux? Alors j'ai suggéré que les corbeaux peuvent voler, mais les mollahs non. Le calife dit, mais si les mollahs volent très haut, donc ils veulent voler très haut pour pouvoir capturer le monde entier. Mais la différence en fait, c'est que lorsque les corbeaux découvrent quelque chose à manger, de la nourriture, ils appellent tous les autres corbeaux pour venir avec eux, et puis ils vont se battre pour le manger. Mais le mollah, par contre, lorsqu'il tombe sur quelque chose de bon, alors il le prend et il le cache sous son aisselle et il veut le garder pour lui-même.
Yes.
Donc voilà la différence entre le corbeau et le mollah.
Okay, now the next question.
Prochaine question.
Your question is occupied 3/4 of the whole time. Thank you.
Le verset numéro 117 du chapitre 6 indique que la majorité a tort. Ce verset condamne-t-il la démocratie?
The verse 117 of Surah number 6 says that the majority does not, the majority of people are wrong. So does this verse condemn democracy?
The democracy condemns itself. Why should we seek the support of this verse? The fact is, the majority of the people do not participate in decision making. They only choose their representatives in democracy. And as far as the decision making is concerned, it is done at the higher level without consulting the people. At best, they consult the members of the parliament. The very top of democracy is cabinet, the cabinet, ministers, etc. They also try to hide things as much as they can, even from the parliament. And the parliament, when it's brought into confidence, discusses the matter without consulting the people at large. And many a time they do not go to the, it's impossible for them to go to the people and to find out the overall opinion. People express sometimes their opinion by riots, by burning tires in the streets. So that's a different language which the people use. But in normal day-to-day decision making, people are not involved. That is why in many cases in democracy, the decision making has no link with the opinion of the masses, who are many a time prepared for that decision which has already been taken through the media. They present things in a manner that the common people are misled. And after the event is over, in which a decision was taken high up, then they let those things after a few years be known to the people, when it's too late. So democracy is unmanageable in that respect. And it has to go wrong. There is no way you can keep it on the right path. Because the decision making, even at the level of whom you give your vote, is done by such principles of a party which guide, which make the rules. You give votes to a party, and even if the man to whom you give your vote is wrong, still you have to give your vote to the party. And that is why so many different wrong people are elected. Never in democracy you go for the right person. You go for the right policies. And once you think you have given your vote to the right policies, then the policy makers are free from you and they can play havoc with the policies and everything they like. Moreover, sometimes the difference between the party in power and the party in opposition is very small. Say if 300 make the government, 300 of the House of Parliament make the government, if there are 270 who do not agree with them, they become the opposition and they become, and each cries out that our decision is right. How can the people of the country know? How can they judge? And this party comes to power after a few years who disagrees with all the decision making of the party in government. So what do you suggest? What happened? Were they wrong in their policies altogether because a new party has emerged? And if the new party makes certain decisions and it is not returned next time, what is the trust left in democracy? They go on changing their policies, changing decisions, calling them right, each one, and the people do not know what's happening. They are all fighting for power. That is what democracy is. Each one is aspiring for power, and it is seldom that some good people are returned, and goodness is also added to the decision making. But the majority in some governments, for instance in the newly developed countries, is a total fraud. They go not only for power but for money. Power hunting is common in policies of the advanced countries and less advanced countries. So when power hunting is the purpose, how can you go right in democracy? Sometimes you know the decision will be wrong, it will be against the country because the people who are elected, they are more educated and more intellectual. But the masses are misled by others, by other propaganda machines, and they want something to happen which is not good for them. The government will not resign. They will follow those whom they lead. In such wrong decisions which have been imposed on the country for many other political reasons or by a mafia of people who go only for their money, the amassing of their money, they do not care what happens to the country. Sometimes these decisions are taken because of the influence of a foreign country which may be very small, like the Israelis are and the state of Israel is, yet they may grow very powerful even to dictate terms to America. So when you probe deeper and deeper, the democracy goes on evading you and disappearing into thin air. Nothing is left of democracy. The Quran is a holy book, is a book of wisdom. It doesn't support any such democracy at all. What it advises is an advice which is universal. If followed, the whole world will be a different world of a real paradise being created here on earth. It says, the Holy Quran says, وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ. Now, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. No. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهَا وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. Just two things. They make the democracy of the Quran. To give your vote is a trust of Allah. So dispense with your vote in the favor of the one whom you think is the best worthy of this vote. not to a party, not to a principle, not to a system, but to a person whom you consider to be good and worthy of delivering justice and honesty. Once you are elected by such votes, then you do not have to go to the voters for their wishes. Then the only principle which should guide you is, whenever you decide according to absolute justice. Whenever you decide with absolute justice. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَىٰ. Once you come to power, even the enmity prevailing between you and a people must not dissuade you from serving the cause of justice. Be firm in disposing things with justice. No enmity should stand in the way of your disposing things with justice. Now, if this is democracy, show me what is wrong with it. It can never go wrong. There is no party system. There is a system of goodness and system of subservience to absolute justice. That is all the world requires. If in any country, the rulers, even if they are imported from some other country, pay homage to justice and adhere to justice, people would never like them to be removed. They want the ultimate of democracy to go in favor of absolute justice. The whole economy will improve. Everything in the government making will be transformed in favor of the country if they follow this rule of the Quran. So that goes for democracy, and I hope we will be able to finish what I have said within 6 minutes. Right? And I hope you will permit me to leave, because I will do some other things in these 6 minutes. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. And there are other things which have to be done in our French program. People are demanding so many things. We should think of means, with the help of course Marty, to create other programs which will satisfy the French-speaking people. But more demands are created with this program, and they keep writing to me, we want this and we want that. Huh?
Inshallah.
Right? And you are holding your microphone in your hand without it. Next time we shall return to you, right? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah.
We will begin with her next time.
Inshallah.